new addition to Egyptology has come my way very recently. A book called Hidden Meanings by a man called Laird Scranton, who is a specialist in computer languages.
Cross-check so many different directions. You know, as a programmer, I've got to be able to determine for myself when I'm right about something and when I'm not. And I have to make that determination in a way that a company can stake its business on. And so there are enough indicators here coming from enough different directions that say, this is right, this is right, this is right, that I'm at the point where I really have to go with it. And I can certainly defend it 5 different ways.
His day job is to make incompatible languages compatible with each other.
Again, that's a programming technique that a lot of times when I go into a client account, they'll have 2 or 3 copies of a program that were written over time, started out to be the same program, and I'm expected to figure out what the differences are between these 3 versions, let's say, of a program. And so I developed programming tools that would compare line by line what the differences were and highlight the differences so that I could say, okay, anything that's not highlighted had to be part of the original program. And anything that is highlighted was either added to one program or removed from the other after the fact. I used that kind of approach initially to try to sort out differences between Egypt and Sumer and Egypt and the Dogon, and that sort of put me in the ballpark of what had to be part of the original myth and what had to be evolved later.
When Scranton compared the latest developments in astrophysics and astronomy to the Dogon and Egyptian account, he found that they were not just similar, I mean, they were identical. The language used to describe these processes was, of course, different, but the processes themselves were virtually identical. Superstring theory and quantum mechanics are written as indelibly into the Dogon and Egyptian schemes as they are into modern books on these subjects. And so Scranton took it still further, reading Stephen Hawking and a number of other well-known scientists and popularizers of this advanced and by no means easy science. And sure enough, not only were the stories the same, but the diagrams were the same. In other words, the diagrams that are used by modern cosmologists to illustrate an electron cloud are effectively the same diagrams that the Dogon and the Egyptians used to illustrate that particular stage of creation within their own cosmological schemes. So you can get a sense now that you can get a sense of the significance of Scranton's work. He is showing in a way that's practically incontrovertible that the ancients had our science.
A lost tale, hidden in the stones. Blueprints of a lost art from a lost world. Behind the veil lies another Egypt. Hidden Egypt.
Originally, as a trainee programmer, I was always under the guidance of another more experienced programmer, and so I had help and that I could turn to when I was trying to solve a problem. I noticed over time that I was being given less and less information and expected to do more and more with it, and I started to joke with myself that at some point I was going to be given nothing and expected to do everything with it. And surprisingly, that was just the qualification I needed to be able to research a book like this, where there was really no one who could give me the guidance that I really needed to be able to sort out what these symbols meant. I had to work it out for myself.
I'm sitting here with Laird Scranton, author of Hidden Meanings, a study of the founding symbols of civilization. Laird has contributed a book of tremendous importance, in my view, to the growing library of books that demonstrate the existence of an extremely sophisticated, highly scientific view of the cosmos that existed as far back as we can trace history, and probably much further than that. Laird's book stands out among these many others, in part because of its originality, and in part because it is, unlike a lot of those other books, extremely accessible. What he does, very briefly, is to show that the Dogon, a remote tribe in West Africa, have a cosmology, and their symbols and the story of how the universe and humanity within it are created matches the ancient Egyptian story very, very closely, and perhaps even more remarkable, and this is where the book becomes controversial in its way and explosive at the same time, when both of these stories are compared to the latest wrinkles in contemporary physics and cosmology, superstring theory and quantum mechanics, quantum physics. All of a sudden, the stories are the same and the symbols are the same.
My starting point was Robert Temple's The Serious Mystery. I think that's where a lot of people started. That's what brought the Dogon into the consciousness of modern society. I read his book. I was very interested in it. I was really interested in his references in the back of the book, and I started following some of those references to try to learn more about the tribe and more about just subject matter. From there, my programming background really started kicking in. Well, let's back up a little bit. I converted to Judaism when I married my wife, Risa. So I had some knowledge of symbols of Judaism. I've had some recreational reading background in Egypt. And so I could see resemblances between the symbols that the Dogon had and that were in ancient Egypt and that were in Judaism. And all that said to me, looks like this stuff is related.